I mean, being a doctor, military doctor, I would say somewhat impressive. He wasn't a bodybuilder or anything not like that, but he just looked like a regular, common, decent guy. I would say so. Maybe that of confidence or a little arrogance. Yeah, I mean, I think he probably felt like we may have that this wasn't going to last very long. I mean, it was going to be one of those things. How can you bring someone back to trial after 9 years? But evidently that's the way he felt, and we did too. We really did. Little things like that, the location of the ice picks, and the ice pick and the knives, blood stains on the bathroom. Uh, those are some of the. Of course, one of them was the brutality of which the other three suffered. And I know he had what they called the pneumothorax, but doesn't even compare with what they went through. I mean, it was just like, really? How could that, how could he sustain that little bit of injury when he was supposedly doing most of the fighting? And they were brutally beaten. Well, I think the first real impact we had was when they showed the pictures. They described what was going on, but then the pictures really, kind of said it all. I noticed, didn't want to look at him. You look at him really quick. Didn't need to see him again. Once was enough. Jim was good, but Brian was by far the more forceful of the two. And, when he was talking, we were all listening through everybody, but I was a bit more intent in listening when he was discussing what was going on. We were impressed. We were impressed with what they came up with. We really were. Like I said, when we started, we were thinking, how could they make this story work? And as they went along, things started adding up. One little detail would look good, and then they put another detail with it. And it really did look like, it could have happened that way. We weren't talking about it, but you could still get the general feeling that when the defense started, they would come up with information that would disprove all this. I think they basically started bringing in character witnesses. I mean, they were following them in. They were, from California here, California there, and they were talking about what a good man he was. I mean, talking about how he created a new life, emergency room doctor, showed his big boat, things like that. And that's fine, but it wasn't anybody. They didn't bring anybody that knew him back at that time. Well, I mean, of course, she was the girl with the floppy hat, and it was a compelling thought. Thinking that they might come up with something to substantiate that story. But I will tell you, when they did bring her in and put her up on the up on the in the jury box, it was horrible. She was very sad person. For whatever reason in her life, she was probably would have been better if they never brought her in. We were anxiously waiting for something to come out. Seriously, just to blow it out of the water. Surprised. We were disappointed, pretty much disappointed, because the prosecution case was getting stronger and stronger just by the lack of defense. The most emotional days would have been the days of the pictures, other than when we came up with our final verdict. I tell you about that one. That was incredibly emotional. Well, I mean, when we were released to go back to the deliberation room, we all went in there, and we immediately took a vote, and it was 9-3. And we started discussing it amongst ourselves, and I'm thinking within an hour or so, two of those people, and we had some heated discussion, and then it got even more heated. And if I remember correctly, I think I think he was a military man, and it's not that he just couldn't believe a fellow military brother could do that, especially to his wife and children. And after a while, when we took our sorry, it does. We took our final vote, and it was 12-0, and that place was unbelievable. We went back to the courtroom. I never looked at him. I don't know if anybody did. We our juror, our spokesman, read the verdict. It was, on the 3 counts, and then they polled us, and each one had to stand up and, give their basis of the 3 counts. And I recall I never looked at him for the whole time. I didn't want to look at him. But I was staying at my parents' house, and I just remember hugging my dad and crying for about 5 minutes. And I thought, what is wrong with me? It was just an emotional release. It was pretty amazing. I remember it very well, even to this day. You probably, my soon-to-be wife probably thought I was crazy, but it made it all real to me. I was not looking at him. No, during the course of during the trial, yes, we looked at him. I will say one time that I looked at him and I was a little bit amazed was when he started crying about something. I think it was during the pictures, and all of us thought this was phony. It felt very fake. Now, whether we were wrong or not, but all of us had that same impression. He was answering to the best he either could or created. But I do remember when they showed him the pictures and he broke down crying, and it didn't seem true. It didn't seem real at all. And we all felt that. Yeah, there again, it would have been better if he had not taken the stand, in my opinion. So I think we had 4 federal cars and we were sitting in them, and we all waited, and then we got out, we walked through, and it was at a very small apartment. And for the struggle that was supposed to have taken place, and pictures that were left standing, things of that nature, it seemed like it really couldn't have happened that way. If you had 3 or 4 additional people in here and a struggle that was going on that was supposed to have happened, that place would have been ransacked. But we didn't see that. So that left an impression. I think there was some couple pieces of furniture. The windows were boarded up because it had been 9 years. There were some pictures standing. It was strange. He had Wade and Bernie. They were all 3 walking around, and the way Jeffrey acted after it was all over was really not to his favor. I mean, the one who deserves the award for finding justice has got to be Freddie Kassab, because he never let it go. He pushed it, and then it showed how Jeffrey basically pushed those 2 away, and that was compelling. He pretty much tried to get them out of his life, and they were still trying to deal with what had happened. Then it was brought up that he had had sexual activity with a nurse, and we're all thinking, really? And then, of course, the objection came up immediately. When we had heard that, we were pretty much appalled that, either whether he had or had not done it, to do that in such a short time, anytime after you've lost a loved one, plus 2 children. I mean, the defense, they just didn't have a lot to present, and it seemed to move along quickly after that, because the prosecution spent their time developing their story. And even especially during the early parts, we were still thinking, this really couldn't have happened. But when they were finished, we thought somewhat a compelling case, but we still thought that it was going to be disproved. And I think when the defense were bringing all their witnesses from out of state, we were thinking they don't have anything. There was nothing there, no bombshells they were going to bring up that would disprove what we've already heard. When he took the stand, that was, probably something a bit more compelling for the prosecution. Well, I remember the fact that a lot of people felt like Wade, being the local attorney, if he'd had more say so in the matter, that they would have a better case. I like Wade, but no, I don't think so. I really, and I didn't know Wade at the time. I ended up meeting Wade later, and enjoyed him. Nice guy, but I really don't think, based on what was presented, that if he had done more, that it would have made a difference. I completely zoned him out. I didn't look. I didn't want to look at him. I didn't want to see his reaction. I mean, because I'm sure there were some surprised people in the courtroom, but we weren't surprised. We were sad. We were very sad. Almost immediately after everybody was polled, Judge Dupree thanked us for doing our civic duty, and then we went out the back door and went to the parking lot where we parked. And like I said, I don't remember seeing any media. Nobody was out there, you know, trying to ask us any questions. The defense, it appeared to us that they were proving that Jeffrey MacDonald, based after the situation, was a very honorable man, a good doctor, had reestablished his life out in California and was doing very well. People liked him a lot. I mean, it was almost 9 years, and he'd done very well, and which was fine. That was great. We had no problem with that. But it wasn't anything that would have disproven what had happened, prior to that time. Yes. Freddie and Mildred being there, I do remember that. And they looked like two parents, two loving parents that had suffered an incredible loss. And especially Freddie carrying out his pursuit of just trying to have a personal relationship with Jeffrey. And Jeffrey pushed him away. And then Freddie started getting suspicious. And he was not to be stopped. And I think his persistence is what made it all happen. He was able to convince other people that something really happened here. And when they looked into it, they believed him. But we still, even midway through the defense, we still thought something could turn this thing around. And I'm going to say, I even really think that it may have been when Jeff took the stand that died. I think that was probably a time when things turned around and we were all going, my God, he did this. We just thought that something would have come up. We were grasping at anything that would have made this thing turn it around, because we really didn't think that we were going to come up with a guilty verdict. And even I thought, I said, man, how could you go 9 years and then convict a guy on a triple murder, make us look silly? And that wasn't my main impression, but I was thinking, if I saw that on TV, I'd say, what were those jurors thinking? But it happens. I mean, we were anticipating that. I think it was me. Whenever it was, we were anticipating him getting up there. And we anticipated him getting up there doing benefit to his cause. But it was almost a 180-degree turnaround. I thought it'd been better if he'd not taken the stand. And it was just, part of it was when he started crying, and it looked fabricated. Pretty bad. Poor acting. Well, it may have solidified it for others. It sure made it look bad for him. And I will say that probably at that moment on, we were thinking, what can they bring up that would discredit what's been done so far? And we were thinking, there isn't anything. No, I don't. His cry was so phony. That's what we focused on. I'm sure he cried when he mentioned the girls' names, if he did. Say the fact it was phony emotion. I mean, I can tell you, when I feel some of this other stuff, I don't like it. I wish I could get away from it, but it just takes a moment. His was almost instantaneous fate. He came out crying, and we thought, that was just not real. We all felt that. I mean, if he had been straight and just answered the questions, probably would have had a better effect for him. But what he came up with was really very poor. We immediately took a vote. And when it turned out to be the 9-3, And then we started discussing the items with the three people. It was a little bit, one-sided. It wasn't anything badgering or hateful, but we were being forceful, saying, how could you not believe this? This is the way it looked like it happened. And then after another hour, we took the second vote, and it was 11-1. And then it was getting real. And like we said, and if I'm not mistaken, it was one of the men who was a military, had been in the Army. And it wasn't that he didn't believe it happened. He just couldn't believe that a man could do that to his family, and especially in the brotherhood of being in the military. Was it 6.5? It didn't seem that long because it went by quickly. We were discussing things the whole time. So I thought it was quicker than that. We did have a heated discussion. There was a little bit of yelling going on, and I think that was out of frustration. But other than that, and I can't remember if there was hugging going on when it was all over as we went out the back way. But it seemed to go by quickly. No, I think he got a very fair trial. I did not see any reasonable doubt. I think that his case just wasn't there. No, I feel very comfortable he got a fair trial. Have never had a second thought in my mind that we didn't give him the right answer. But sad about doing that. We didn't like it. We really thought it wasn't going to happen that way, but it did. I think when you look at the information behind the case, taking so long to get there for whose ever fault it was, and he was a prominent man and a very productive man after the situation, that people were looking at that 12 people, how could y'all come up with a case like that? And I tell anybody that has that doubt based on what we came up, I said, go to the trial, spend all your time there, and then you make your own mind up.